I grew up in a house where his name was never spoken. Not in anger, not in sorrow, just not at all. If I ever dared to ask about him, my mom would freeze up, her lips thinning like she was holding back something volcanic. All I knew was, he left. 3 words. That was it. No explanations. No bedtime stories about how he used to hold me. No old photos. Just silence and the weight of a father-shaped hole I was never allowed to question. My name's Haley, and I just turned 18 last spring. All my life, it was just me, my mom, and sometimes my grandma when she'd visit from Florida. We lived in a quiet, tight little neighborhood in Pennsylvania, the kind where everyone mowed their lawns on Saturdays and pretended their families were perfect on Sundays. Except ours wasn't. We never talked about what we didn't have. No dad. No birthday cards from him. No support checks. No calls. And no explanations. But the ache of not knowing sat deep in my chest like a stone I could never swallow. As a kid, I used to wonder if he was some kind of criminal or addict. Maybe he ran off to start a new family. Maybe he died. Mom always dodged those questions like bullets. So eventually, I stopped asking. That doesn't mean I stopped wondering. I got through school okay. I had friends. I did well in class. I even got accepted into a good college out of state. But behind it all, there was this quiet resentment I couldn't shake. Every time I saw a friend's dad show up to a soccer game or help carry boxes into their dorm, I'd pretend I didn't care. But I did. I used to lie in bed at night and make up stories about him, my dad. In some, he'd been kidnapped. In others, he was out there searching for me. Sometimes, he was a soldier who'd lost his memory. Other times, he was just a jerk who didn't care. But I never imagined the truth would come to my front door. It was a Monday afternoon in early September. I had just gotten home from my shift at the coffee shop and was still wearing my apron when the doorbell rang. I opened the door and blinked. There, on my front porch, stood a girl who looked like me. She had my hair, dark and curly. Her eyes were almost the exact same hazel shade. Even the way she tilted her head when I opened the door was weirdly familiar. She looked maybe a year or 2 older than me. Her clothes were kind of worn out, like she'd been traveling. Her expression was nervous, but her eyes were locked onto mine like she'd been waiting for this moment for a long time. "Hi," she said softly. "Are you Haley Thompson?" I nodded slowly, my heart already pounding in my chest. "Yeah." "Who are you?" She swallowed hard, then said something that would change everything I thought I knew about my life. "My name's Emma. I think I'm your sister." I laughed, out of sheer disbelief more than anything. "What?" She opened her backpack and pulled out an old photo. It was faded, but clear enough. A man, tall, dark-haired, stood smiling with a toddler in his arms. That toddler was me. I recognized the little curls. The man? I'd never seen him before, not that I remembered. But I knew right away. "That's our dad," she said, her voice trembling. "His name is David Carter." Carter. That wasn't our last name. I suddenly felt dizzy. "My dad's name was James Thompson," I muttered, though even I didn't sound sure. Emma looked down for a second, then back at me. "No. That's the name your mom gave you. But his real name was David Carter. And he was with my mom before he ever met yours." I just stared at her, speechless. A million questions swirled in my mind. Was this a prank? A scam? But something in her face, some deep, familiar ache, I recognized it. She wasn't lying. "I've been looking for you for almost a year," she said, her voice cracking. "I found a letter he wrote before he died." That last word hit me like a slap. "Died?" "I know this is a lot," she said. "But please, can we talk?" I should have shut the door. I should have called my mom. I should have screamed or cried or done something other than what I did, which was step aside and let her in. She walked into the house like it was haunted. She kept looking around, like she could feel something. Memories that weren't hers. Ghosts that had been hiding in the walls. I brought her into the kitchen, poured us both some water, and sat down. My hands were shaking. Hers were too. And then she pulled out a folded piece of paper and placed it on the table between us. This was the letter he left. For you. I picked it up with trembling fingers. The handwriting was old and shaky. My name was written across the top. As I unfolded it, I felt like the air around me had changed. Like my whole life had just been split into two parts. Before this letter, and after. I held the letter in my hands for a long time before I opened it. Part of me didn't want to read it. Because if I did, it would be real. Everything I believed about my family, everything I'd been told, or not told, could unravel in a single paragraph. But the bigger part of me, the one that had spent 18 years aching to know the truth, couldn't wait another second. I unfolded the paper. The handwriting was shaky and a little hard to read, like it had been written by someone sick or tired. Maybe both. But the words were clear. Every one of them hit like a punch to the chest. Haley, if you're reading this, then Emma found you. I always hoped one day she would. I'm sorry, more than you'll ever know, for walking away from your life before it even began. I never stopped thinking about you, not once. But your mother made it clear that if I stayed, things would get worse for everyone. You were only a baby when I left, and I doubt you remember me. Maybe that's for the best. But please believe me when I say it wasn't because I didn't love you. I did. I still do. There are things your mother never told you. Things I think you deserve to know. About me. About her. About why I left. I made mistakes, but I didn't walk out because I didn't care. I walked out because I was forced to choose, and I chose peace over war, even if it meant losing my daughter. Emma has the rest. Trust her. She's your sister, even if the world never gave you the chance to grow up together. I hope one day you'll understand. Dad, David. I stared at the letter for what felt like forever. My mouth was dry. My throat burned. And the tears I didn't know I'd been holding back finally spilled over. I'd imagined so many versions of my dad, deadbeat, addict, coward, but none of them had written me a letter like this. None of them had said they were forced to leave. Forced. By my mom? I looked up at Emma, whose eyes were already red-rimmed. How did you find me? She took a breath. After he passed, I was going through his old things. I found this locked box in his closet, had pictures of you, old birthday cards he never sent, even a hospital bracelet with your name on it. The letter was inside. And so was a printout of your mom's old address. I swallowed hard. So, he knew where I was? Emma nodded. He kept tabs. Quietly. He even tried reaching out once, when you were about 10. But your mom sent him a legal notice. Said if he ever contacted you again, she'd file for a restraining order and press charges. I felt like the ground beneath me was disappearing. My mom did that. She kept him away. On purpose? No. There has to be some reason. She wouldn't just do that unless. I cut myself off. Even as I said it, I didn't believe it. Emma reached into her bag again and pulled out an envelope. Inside were photocopies of legal letters, cold, sharp paragraphs from lawyers representing my mom, clearly warning my dad to stay away, in the best interest of the child. She told him you didn't need him, Emma whispered. That you were better off without a deadbeat who abandoned his other child. Other child. That meant me. I leaned back, my whole body trembling. Why? Why would she lie like that? Emma looked down. I think she didn't want to share you. Or maybe she just hated him that much. My mom said their relationship ended badly. But not like this. 100 memories flooded my mind. Mom's tight-lipped silences whenever his name came up, the way she changed the channel anytime a father-daughter moment played on TV, how she always looked at me a little too closely when I asked about family history. I thought she was protecting me from pain. But maybe she was protecting herself from the truth. I stood up and started pacing the room. My chest felt tight. So, let me get this straight. He didn't leave because he wanted to. He left because she forced him out. He tried to come back, and she stopped him. And all these years, she let me believe he just walked away. Emma nodded. That's what the letter says. And it matches everything I know. But why didn't he fight harder? Because he was already in a custody battle with my mom. It was draining him. Emotionally, financially. And your mom had more resources. Her family helped her. She made it clear he'd lose. That part, I could almost believe. My grandparents had money. Influence. They'd helped us get this house, paid for my private school when I was younger. Maybe they helped make him disappear too. Emma stood up slowly, unsure if she should hug me or give me space. I'm not here to cause drama. I wanted to meet you. I wanted you to know the truth. I don't even know what to believe, I whispered. She gave me a soft smile. Believe this. You were loved. Even if no one told you. Even if he never got to say it himself. I sat back down, feeling like my heart had been yanked in two. One half was filled with sudden warmth, the idea that I had mattered to him. That he didn't just leave without a second thought. That maybe I wasn't as forgettable as I always feared. But the other half burned with betrayal. My mom had lied to me. She'd built our entire life on a false story. She made me believe my father had abandoned me when she was the one who shut the door and locked it tight. And now, she was still at work, completely unaware that the truth had walked through the front door and turned everything upside down. Emma reached for her bag. I should go. I know this is a lot. Wait, I said, standing quickly. Stay. Just for a little bit. Her eyes widened. You sure? I nodded. Yeah. I have questions. So many. And I think you're the only one who can help me get real answers. We sat back down together at the table, two strangers bound by blood, heartbreak, and a man neither of us would ever get to ask questions to ourselves. But the storm was only just beginning. Because in just a few hours, my mom was going to come home. And I was finally going to ask her everything. The clock on the wall ticked louder than usual. Every passing second felt like a countdown to something explosive. Emma and I sat at the kitchen table in tense silence, both of us staring at the same old wooden front door, waiting for it to creak open. Waiting for the moment my mom would walk in, completely unaware that the lie she'd been guarding for 18 years was about to shatter. I had never felt so anxious in my life. I kept glancing at the letter in my hands, reading the words over and over, as if they might change. As if maybe this was all a mistake, a cruel prank. But no, it was real. David Carter. That was my father's real name. And I had a sister, sitting across from me, breathing the same heavy air, looking at me like she saw someone she'd been searching for her whole life. When the key finally turned in the door lock, I jumped so hard I nearly spilled the water in front of me. Mom walked in like it was just another day. She set her purse on the hallway bench, kicked off her shoes, and called out casually, Haley, I picked up dinner on the way home. Chicken parm from Dante's, your favorite. I didn't answer. Emma stood up slowly. Mom turned the corner into the kitchen, and the moment she saw her, she stopped in her tracks like she'd just seen a ghost. Her eyes went wide. Her whole face changed. Like someone had ripped the air out of her lungs. It took her a few seconds to speak. But when she did, her voice was razor sharp. What is she doing here? That one word, she, told me everything. I stood up too, my body trembling. So it's true. You know her. She didn't answer. Her name is Emma, I said, louder this time. She's my sister. My real sister. From Dad. My mom's eyes flicked to Emma, then back to me. Her lips pressed together into a line so tight it looked painful. I don't know what she told you, but you need to stop this, Haley. Right now. Stop what exactly? I snapped. Stop learning the truth about my own life. Stop reading the letter my father left for me. Or stop realizing that everything you've ever told me about him was a complete lie? Mom's face flushed with color. You don't understand. No, I cut in. I don't. So please, explain it to me. Tell me why you told me he walked out on us. Tell me why you never said his name. Why you kept his letters from me. Why you made me believe I wasn't worth fighting for. Her eyes filled with something, guilt, maybe, but she shook her head. I did what I had to do. Did you? My voice cracked. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you did what you wanted to do. You erased him from my life. You made sure I never knew the truth. Emma took a careful step forward. He didn't leave because he didn't love her. He wanted to stay. Don't you dare speak to me. Mom snapped at her. You don't know the first thing about what happened between us. I turned to her again, angry now. Then tell me. Because the only side I've ever heard is yours. And clearly, even that wasn't the truth. Mom looked at me long and hard. Her posture changed. Her shoulders sank. She looked suddenly older. Tired. Like she'd been holding something in for too long. She pulled out a chair and sat down slowly. Fine, she said quietly. You want the truth? Here it is. The room fell so silent I could hear the hum of the refrigerator behind us. I met your father when I was 22, she began. He was charming, sweet, and completely reckless. I fell for him hard. Too fast. I didn't know he had another child. He didn't tell me until after I found out I was pregnant with you. She looked over at Emma. You were just a toddler. Emma didn't respond. I was furious, Mom continued. He'd been lying to me. Playing both sides. Trying to keep us both. I gave him an ultimatum, leave her, or lose me and the baby. He swore he'd change. Said he'd be there for you. But I knew the truth, Haley. I knew what kind of man he was. But he wrote me a letter, I whispered. He said you forced him out. He chose to leave. She snapped. I told him he couldn't keep bouncing between us. That if he wanted to be a father to you, he needed to cut ties with her completely. But he couldn't. Or wouldn't. So yes, I told him to go. And I told him if he ever tried to come back into our lives again, I'd take him to court. Because I wasn't going to let my daughter grow up watching her father split his time between two homes, two lives, like we were options on a menu. Tears pricked my eyes. So you did shut him out. I protected you, she said, her voice cracking for the first time. I did what I thought was best. I didn't want you growing up in chaos. I didn't want you watching him leave for weekends with another daughter. I didn't want you wondering why he wasn't there every Christmas. So yes, I erased him. I made him disappear. Because I thought, maybe that would be less painful. Emma shook her head. You didn't protect her. You robbed her of the chance to know him. He was selfish, Mom hissed. He played you both. Don't romanticize him. I sat down hard, feeling like the wind had been knocked out of me. You could have told me. You could have let me decide. I couldn't risk it, Mom said. What if you chose him? What if you hated me for telling the truth? I stared at her, stunned. You were afraid I'd hate you. So you lied to me? Silence. Do you have any idea? I whispered. How many nights I stayed up wondering what I did wrong? Why I wasn't enough for him to stay? Why he never sent a card, or showed up at school, or even tried? Tears spilled down my cheeks. You let me think I was abandoned, Mom. Her face broke then. The mask shattered. She looked at me with such anguish that, for a moment, I felt sorry for her. I thought I was doing the right thing, she said. I didn't want you growing up in his shadow. I didn't want you to feel second best. But you didn't give me a chance to feel anything. I said, my voice hollow. You chose for me. And now I'll never know what it would have been like. To have a dad. To know him. To ask him why. Emma sat beside me and placed a gentle hand on my back. He used to talk about you all the time. Even when he couldn't see you. He said you were the hardest thing he ever lost. I closed my eyes and sobbed into my hands. For the first time in 18 years, I knew the truth. My father hadn't just vanished. He hadn't abandoned me. He had loved me, fought for me, even in silence. But the war between him and my mom was one I had never even been allowed to witness. And in the end, I was the one left in the wreckage. I finally looked up at my mom, who now sat crumpled in her chair. "I don't hate you," I said, "but I don't trust you anymore. Not right now." She nodded, tears falling down her face. "I need time," I whispered, "to figure out who I am, without the lies." Emma squeezed my shoulder, and I knew. This was only the beginning. The days that followed were some of the quietest of my life. After that explosive night, my mom barely spoke. She tiptoed around the house like a ghost, her guilt hanging over her like a storm cloud. I wasn't angry in the way I expected to be, not throwing things or screaming, but there was a coldness between us that wasn't there before. I couldn't look at her without seeing all the years she let me ache in silence, thinking I wasn't wanted, that I was forgettable. I moved into the guest bedroom to put some space between us. Emma stayed in town. She got a motel room a few blocks away and started meeting me during the day. We'd walk around the park, sit by the lake, or grab coffee and just talk. I had a million questions, and she answered every one she could. It turned out she'd grown up not that far from me, maybe 2 towns over, but our paths had never crossed. We might have even been in the same mall on the same day and never known. Her life hadn't been perfect either. After our dad left, her mom struggled. She said there were times when bills didn't get paid, and they had to move in with her aunt. Emma had her own scars. But one thing she did have was him, for a while. David, our dad. "He used to bring me to this old comic book shop downtown," she told me one day as we sat outside on a bench. "He said when you were born, he bought 2 matching stuffed animals. One for you, one for me. He wanted us to have something that connected us." My throat tightened. "Do you still have it?" She nodded and pulled out a small, faded elephant from her bag. It was soft, with one ear slightly torn, but it had a warmth to it, like it had been loved for years. "I think this one was supposed to be yours," she said, placing it gently in my hands. "But I kept it safe, just in case I ever found you." Tears welled up in my eyes. I held the elephant close and whispered, "Thank you." Over the next few days, we dove deeper into who our dad was, our dad. Emma showed me pictures I had never seen before. Some were old Polaroids of him holding her at the zoo, or laughing with her in the backyard. One that broke me, was a picture of him holding a tiny baby. Me, in a hospital blanket. His face was pure joy. "He never stopped thinking about you," Emma whispered as I stared at the photo. And just like that, my whole sense of self began to shift. Growing up, I always felt like a missing puzzle piece. Like there was something wrong with me. Like I was incomplete, and no one could explain why. Now, the empty space inside me didn't feel so hollow. It felt complicated, messy, but real. I wasn't the girl whose father just walked away without a second thought. I was the daughter of a man who loved me, but lost the battle to stay in my life. And I was the sister of a girl who had been searching for me for almost a decade. One afternoon, Emma invited me to visit their old house, the one where she and Dad used to live. It was only 20 minutes away, and I hesitated at first, but I needed to see it. I needed to feel something real. When we pulled into the driveway, I felt like I was trespassing on someone else's memories. The house was small and worn down now, but you could tell it once held life. Emma led me to the garage, where her mom had packed up all of Dad's old boxes after he died. She handed me a key and said, "Take your time." I stepped inside. Dust floated in the sunbeams through the window, and the air smelled like old wood and faded paper. I opened the first box and found stacks of letters, unsent, all addressed to me. Each one had a date, written in careful handwriting. To Haley, age 4. To Haley, age 7. To Haley, when she starts high school. I dropped to my knees as I read the first one. Hi, sweetheart. Today, you're 4 years old. I wonder if you like princesses or superheroes. I hope someone is throwing you a birthday party. I wanted to be there so badly. I couldn't keep reading. The tears were too heavy. I spent hours in that garage, reading letter after letter, each one more heartbreaking than the last. He had watched from afar. He knew when I started school. When I broke my arm in 5th grade. He'd heard everything through someone, maybe Emma's mom, maybe mutual friends. He always knew. And he always loved me. It was overwhelming. By the time I came back home that night, my hands were covered in dust and my heart felt like it had been broken open and stitched back together. Mom was in the kitchen when I got there. She looked up when she saw me, her eyes cautious. She didn't say anything. I set the box of letters down on the counter between us. You didn't protect me, I said, voice quiet but firm. You protected yourself. Her lip quivered. Haley, you didn't want to share me. I get it. Maybe he hurt you. Maybe he lied. But you had no right to keep him from me. And definitely no right to rewrite this story to make me hate him. She closed her eyes, the pain visible. I know. That's not good enough. She nodded. I know that too. We stood in silence for a long time. Finally, she said, I can't fix what I did. I wish I could. But if you'll let me, I want to be honest now. About everything. No more lies. I looked at her carefully. Her walls were down. Her armor was off. She wasn't the mother who had kept secrets. She was just a woman, flawed, scared, and filled with regret. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, I said honestly. But I'm willing to hear the truth. All of it. She nodded, eyes full of tears. Then I'll tell you. That night, we sat at the table for hours. She told me everything, how the relationship with my dad started, how it fell apart, how scared she was to raise me alone, how ashamed she felt when she realized she had let her hurt dictate my future. I told myself I was doing what was best, she whispered. But deep down, I think I knew I was just angry and afraid. I let her talk. I didn't interrupt. I just listened. And for the first time, I saw her not as the woman who lied to me, but as someone who had been broken too. None of this made what she did right, but it made it human. 3 weeks passed. 3 long, heavy, healing weeks since the day Emma knocked on my door and told me the truth I'd been craving my entire life, and also the truth I didn't know I was ready to face. In those weeks, everything shifted. My relationship with my mom was different now. Raw, uneasy, but also more real than it had ever been. She didn't try to pretend anymore. She didn't dodge questions. She gave me space when I needed it and listened when I finally started asking all the questions I used to whisper to myself at night. Did he ever ask about me? Did you really read his letters before hiding them? Was there ever a part of you that wanted to let him back in? Her answers weren't always easy to hear, but at least they were honest. She cried a lot, more than I'd ever seen. And for the first time, I didn't see her as this invincible, unshakable figure in my life. I saw her as a woman who made choices, some protective, some selfish, all complicated. I didn't forgive her right away. I wasn't even sure if I could. But I stopped being angry long enough to start feeling everything else. Grief, sadness, hope. Emma and I grew closer by the day. We met almost every afternoon, either in town or at the garage where I kept returning to those boxes full of Dad's memories. Every time I opened another letter, I discovered a new layer to him and to myself. The way he talked to me in those letters, it wasn't like someone writing to a stranger. It was like he knew me. Like he had a whole relationship with me in his head, even if the world never gave him the chance to live it out loud. One afternoon, Emma pulled out a thick folder from her backpack. These are his journals, she said. I wasn't going to show you until you were ready, but I think you are. I opened the folder and saw page after page of his handwriting. Some entries were simple, about his day, work, bills, thoughts. Others were heartbreaking. Saw Haley from across the field today. She was at soccer practice. I parked across the street just to watch. She's getting so tall. I wanted to run across the grass and hug her, but I knew it would only cause trouble. I hope she knows I'm proud of her. I hope she feels it, even from a distance. I broke down reading that. All this time, I thought he'd disappeared. But he was never really gone. He was just on the outside, looking in, always watching, always loving me from afar. That weekend, Emma and I drove to his grave. It was in a quiet cemetery outside of town. Nothing fancy, just a modest headstone with his name, David Carter, and the words, Father, Dreamer, gone too soon. I stood there for a long time without speaking. My hands trembled as I knelt down and traced his name with my fingers. I'm sorry I didn't come sooner, I whispered. I didn't know you were waiting. Emma stepped back, giving me space, while I finally said all the things I'd held inside for years. I thought you didn't want me. I thought I wasn't enough. But now I know. That's not true. You tried. You cared. You didn't leave because you stopped loving me. You left because someone else made that decision for both of us. I placed one of the letters he'd written back on the grave. I wish I could have known you, I said. I wish I could have heard your voice, seen your face when I got my first acceptance letter, hugged you after my graduation. I wish for so many things. But I'm here now. And I know the truth now. And I promise, I won't let your memory fade. I stood and turned to Emma. Thank you, I said softly, for not giving up on finding me. She smiled through her tears. I was never going to stop. We embraced, and in that moment, it hit me. This wasn't just the ending of one story. It was the beginning of another. Later that week, I sat down with my mom again. I had made a decision. I'm going to college in January, I told her. But I'm going to defer a semester first. There's a lot I still need to process. She nodded. Whatever you need, I'll support you. I want to spend some time with Emma, I added. Maybe visit her mom. Hear her sigh too. And I want to keep going through Dad's things. I'm not trying to replace the life I had. But I want to understand the one I never got to live. She swallowed hard. I understand. We were learning to speak again. Not as mother and daughter on opposite sides of a lie, but as two people trying to rebuild something fragile. That night, I lay in bed with the elephant Emma gave me tucked under my arm. The one Dad had bought for me when I was a baby. I held it close, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel empty. I felt like I was finding myself. Slowly. Painfully. But finally. This story doesn't end with a perfect reunion. There's no magic fix, no movie-style ending where everything is wrapped up neatly. My dad is still gone. My mom's life still happened. And the years we lost can't be given back. But I do have something now that I never had before. The truth. A sister. A father's words that I'll carry with me forever. And the power to choose how the next chapter of my life unfolds, not based on someone else's lies, but on my own healing, honesty, and heart. And that means everything.